In this presentation, we will take a look at mandatory and voluntary deductions within QuickBooks Online. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Here we are in our Practice Payroll QuickBooks file. You can follow along in your own business file or take a look at the free Intuit or QuickBooks test drive file. We're going to go down to the Workers tab on the left side. We're in the Employee tab up top. This is typically where we run the payroll. We currently have our 3 employees here. We're now going to take a look at a payroll check and take a look at the types of deductions within it. To do that, we're going to create a new tab up top. I'm going to go up top, right-click on this tab and duplicate this tab. And then we're going to go back down and take a look at a check. So I'm going to go to the Accounting. And we're going to go to the chart of accounts up top. We are currently in the checking account. Within the checking account, we will view the register within the checking account. Then we have all of our checks. Now this, of course, is a checking account which just has payroll. So all of these checks are payroll checks, but we're looking for a particular payroll check, or any payroll check in this case, to take a look at the withholdings within it. We'll actually go back up top and look at Anthony's payroll checks for May. So we'll look at that. We're going to open this up by editing it so we can then see the detail. QuickBooks will bounce us out of the register and take us to the data input screen for this paycheck. As we can see, we have the regular pay and the overtime pay to give us the gross pay. This is for the current time period. Then we have the employee taxes. The employee taxes will of course be mandatory. So these are taxes that are paid by the employee, and we're required as the employer to withhold those taxes from the employee. But of course, those are going to be mandatory items that we have to withhold. And that includes the federal income tax for the employee, Social Security, Medicare, and any California or any state tax type obligations. How do we set this information up? QuickBooks will typically set this information up as we process the payroll. So much of this will be set up by the default settings in terms of which accounts will be affected. How do we create the journal entry when we process the payroll? The FIT information then needs some added information as we enter the data for each individual employee, that being from the W-4. That includes things like the marital status, and obviously we have the pay periods, how often we pay that employee, and the number of exemptions. The Social Security and Medicare are pretty straightforward in terms of the rules, and therefore just setting up the payroll, QuickBooks will typically set those default settings, and they will be fairly standardized, and we won't have to do too much more in terms of the setup process other than basically the running and setting up the payroll in and of itself. The state will of course change from state to state. QuickBooks is getting better and better, however, at knowing the rules and regulations for states and locations. Then we have the other types of deductions down here, and many of these would be the voluntary type deductions. These are going to be the things that oftentimes an employer may offer to the employees as benefits, and the employee then has the choice as to whether they want to take those benefits or not. And this is a great thing to have from the employee and employer perspective, because oftentimes these are areas they can save the taxes for the employee and employer portion, and it can show that the employer is doing not just what is mandatory, but is looking to give more benefit to the employees, and the employees would of course hopefully value that as well. So that would include the 401k plan, possibly a dental plan, any other kind of medical insurance, vision insurance. These are types of voluntary deductions. We can add these items as we set up new employees. So to take a look at those items, we're going to go back to this first tab, back to our employees. So we're in Workers and Employees. And as we set up a new employee, or if we wanted to change the settings for an employee, we can go into that particular employee. We can edit the employee if we're going back into it, or go through the same screen if we're setting this up, and then scroll down and we're looking at these items here. So these are going to be the types of deductions. This is where we'll typically find the voluntary deductions and some more of basically mandatory deductions. We might have something like a garnishment, which is basically a mandatory deduction, could be a court-ordered type deduction that we have. And then we could select more types of deductions here. So we have the dental provider. These are the ones that we have already set up. If we wanted to set up a new one, so we have dental, we have eye, we have the health savings account, medical insurance by the provider. And then if we want a new item, then we can set up a new item that we could set up, for example, an other deductions item, and then look at the types here for the other deductions. So we can go through this process to set up these items, and that's basically how easy it is to set up within QuickBooks. QuickBooks will then use this information to generate which accounts will be affected as we process the payroll. So let's take a look at that now by going back to the reports. So if I go back to the second tab, the register tab, and we close this one back out, and we take a look at the reports by going to the reports on the left side, and then we open up the balance sheet report. And we change the dates from 01/01/19 to 12/31/19 and run that report. You'll see that in the liability sections as we run this, some of these voluntary deductions will be here. So we got the 401k plan, we've got the dental, we've got the eye. These are areas where we ran payroll, we took the money out of the employee check, and now we owe it. QuickBooks then set up these liability accounts for us as we set up the payroll items. Now, if we wanted to change these, we could go into the payroll settings up here, as we saw with the FIT tax and the Social Security tax. We won't go into a lot of depth here, but we could start by going to your company file, and then we go to the payroll settings to set up where the settings would go to for those items. You can also change the name of the account if we would like to change the name. Again, we actually entered these names as we entered the new items. You can change those by going to the accounts and change the names of those particular accounts as well. We will, of course, be setting these items up as we walk through the payroll problem. So we'll see each of these items in detail as we walk through our comprehensive payroll problem. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.